Thanks for inviting me, Antonio. As you said, Grand Union is based just up the road on Paisley Street. We're upstairs from Strix. Hopefully you'll get time to pop around there at some point today. We've got two brilliant exhibitions on. Confused myself with two laptops. One by two artists, Taco Tal, who's based in Glasgow, and Mammy George, who's based in the USA. And this is the first exhibition that our current associate curator has programmed. It's a really lovely show, so if you get a chance to pop around today, please do. We also have an exhibition hosted by Strix at the moment. We've been working with the MA curating course from the University of Birmingham and guiding their students through the process of selecting and putting on an exhibition. They've done a brilliant job, and we've worked with 3 artists to put on a really lovely, thoughtful show. So if you get time to pop around, please do. So as I mentioned, Grand Union is a gallery and studio just around the corner on Paisley Street. We're within Minerva Works, which is a large industrial building that now is full to the brim. It houses many different businesses, including several arts organisations. I'm going to talk about how we set up the organisation quite practically, and the context that we did that within, and then talk about our future plans now and less about the programme. So hopefully that's useful to the context of today. So we opened in 2010. We were founded by a group of artists and curators, and we were looking for a space to house some purpose-built, good quality studios that were affordable, and a project space which a group of immersion curators could use to develop their practice publicly, and which we could invite artists to develop and present work within. It felt at that time that there wasn't that sort of space available. So yeah, we were kind of filling a void that was in the city at that moment. We came together as a group after quite a chance meeting, really. An Arts Council officer had invited us to view a space, an old fire station just outside of Digbeth, that was coming up for rent. And they'd done that on the back of a larger studio organisation that had closed recently at that time. This was in about 2007. That had been funded for quite a long time, and I think they had an appetite to think about a different model for developing artist studios in the city. So as I said, that was around 2007. Birmingham art scene was very much in a period of change at that moment. And there were a few artist-led spaces dotted around the city, a few over in the Jewellery Quarter, which is the other side of the city, and a kind of cluster developing here. So at that time, Vivid had a space on the corner, Friction Arts have been around for a long time on the other side of Digbeth. Icon had a space here called Icon East Side, and East Side Projects was on the verge of opening. So it felt like an exciting time here, and there's like a cluster of activity that we wanted to kind of situate ourselves within, really. So we started to meet after that meeting at the fire station on a sort of monthly basis, I guess, to talk through and fathom out what it was that we might want to do, who really wanted to be involved and could commit time, and what our collective skills and networks were. And after that sort of process of meeting, we came up with the crux of our aims, I guess, which was to provide good quality studio space, which is affordable. It felt like at that time there was a lot of very rough and ready studio space around, which is great if you've got a kind of practical, big sculptural practice or quite messy practice, but if you're sat at a desk for long periods of time, those sorts of spaces are unusable for a good 6 months of the year. We wanted to have a space that we could host artists, curators and visitors in a reasonable level of comfort, and to create a space that we could present a public programme of events and exhibitions where we could build an audience, and really it was like a studio for curators, so they could come in, start their practice and develop exhibitions and projects with an audience of people. We've hit most of those. I think if people have been to the gallery in the winter or in the depth of the summer, you'll know that it's a bit greenhouse-like, so that's still something for us to work on. But we did what we could with a very limited budget and no real experience at that time. Timing-wise, that all coincided with the financial crash. which actually was quite a good opportunity for us because it meant that we could very easily get hold of cheap space at that time. An architect's firm called K4 Architects, who have actually worked on the space here, had just moved into a building on Paisley Street next to Minerva Works, and had been developing a housing scheme for that site, which had fallen through due to the crash. So they told us about Minerva Works, and there weren't many occupants within that at the time, and they knew that the landlords would be interested in a kind of meanwhile use and would be up for negotiating a rent. Because of the location, and it was just up the road from all of these other exciting spaces that were opening, it seemed perfect. So we went to have a look. And this is how the building looked at that time. So it was quite rough and ready. There'd been a fire in some of the spaces. It was really filthy. But that actually meant that we could negotiate a very, very cheap rent. And we set about cleaning it ourselves. Harminder, bless him, jet washing the ceiling. And yeah, the format of the spaces within that building, there were lots of different units, so it felt like a really good format for us. We could have studios in some of the units and a gallery space in others. So yeah, we set about making them habitable. This is what is now our gallery space. So it was pretty rough. I think this must have been used as like a breakout space. There was a basketball hoop and a strange kind of kitchen setup, which we ripped out and set about making it look more like a gallery. This is myself and Karen Kilberg at the time, after we just got the keys and set up our first kind of event in the space. We worked with a brilliant technician, designer and fabricator called Matt Higginbottom, who fortuitously at that time was also setting up as a solo business. He set up as Queen and Crawford. And because of that, he worked with us for a really great rate because he knew that he could use this project as a showcase to launch his new business. So there's a lot of being in the right place at the right time. And with his brief, he came up with an ingenious design for the studios that used very cheap materials, that created insulated space, that looked great, and that we could help build. So we'd saved a lot of money on labour costs. So I think we built the whole there's 8 studios within this building, and we built them all, put new electrics in, all for about £20,000 that we'd got from the Birmingham City Council's regeneration department at that time. It was slightly risky. We'd only got a 3-year lease on the building, so it felt like we were investing quite a lot of money at that time. But Matt also built these studios so that they could be taken down, so all of the materials are in panels. So we put them up, but if we did have to move after that 3 years, we could take the majority of the material with us. So it felt like, it was like our first go at strategic planning and thinking a bit longer term about what we were doing. Matt also moved into a unit in the building, so that was the start of a kind of arts community developing there as well. Our landlords were very impressed with the results. I don't think they'd expected us to do such a good-looking job. And they quickly realised that they could use this as a showcase to attract other cultural tenants to fill the building. This worked in our favour, and we developed a very good relationship with them, enabling the extension of our lease later on, and a continuation of very favourable rental terms. It also meant that we could show them the value of having cultural tenants. So the site started to be animated with people because we were opening more regularly to the public. As more organisations moved in, the landlords started to smarten up the site, so they could see the benefit of doing that, including creating this lovely mooring on the canal at the back of the car park. So we back right onto the Grand Union Canal, which is where we've taken our name from. I guess it's important to say that that's not without implications. The building was already home to a few businesses. Clifton Steel, who are a large fabrication business, have an office next door to our gallery, and a large factory on the side of the building. Paisley Park Music Studios, who are still there. A car wash and window tinting business, and a Pentecostal church, who are not there any longer. And Virgin Media. Strangely, we never see them. Their big servers are stored within the building. They're still there. They must be getting a very good deal there, I think. We've always had a good neighbourly relationship with all of the other tenants in the building, but I expect some of them probably weren't particularly happy to see us bringing a new flow of people to that place at the beginning. I think they'd been very left alone up until that point, and the car wash and the Pentecostal church didn't last too much longer after we'd moved in because they hadn't been paying their rent for quite a long time, I think. It brought too much attention to their site, to that site. So, yeah, I guess it's sort of important to think that, you know, although we feel like we've gone in and created this lovely community, actually those consequences have actions for other people and on their kind of communities and livelihoods. To go back to us, we worked with a brilliant property manager from the Canals and Rivers Trust called Mike Finkel, and he could see how the site was changing. He was really interested in this like organic, fairly slow moving development that was happening on site with very little intervention from them. Within 4 years, they'd gone from having only 6 units occupied within that whole building to full occupancy, which is 19 units. By 2014, Minerva Works was full of cultural organisations like Vivid Projects, Icon Slow Boat Project had moved to the mooring there, Rogue Play Aerial Theatre, who are still there, Strix, Nicholson Dance School, Harrison Moore Canvases and Art Shop, and Centrala, as well as several fabricators and a space called Edible Eastside, which was just up the road, which was an urban allotment space, which was very beautiful in the summer. Mike, the president from Canals and Rivers Trust, was really chuffed that the waterway was getting kind of indirect attention, and very direct attention through projects like Icon Slow Boat. They were developing an income stream without having to adopt any aggressive marketing approaches. People were coming to them based on their visits to other organisations on the site, seeing how those units could be used, and then making an approach to see if they could move into. And I think he could really see how that could pan out over a larger area, could create case studies for different types of planning policy, and that this much slower approach created an embedded community of very mixed tenants that had their own ecology. So, you know, a lot of the business there uses each other. It sets up these new supply chains. So we've used all 3 of the fabricators that are on site. We're paying Strix for their space at the moment. There's this lovely kind of exchange that goes on. And we're also part of Digbeth First Friday, as Carolina mentioned, that connects us outside of Minerva Works to spaces like Eastside and Friction Arts, and places like Digbeth Community Garden down the road. A really great thing about that relationship as well is that we were invited to be present at Canal and River Trust's site planning meetings. So they were involving us in their plans for the wider site. We had a seat at the table so we could contribute ideas, talk about our concerns and steer activity. As I said previously, I think Mike recognised that the value is just not in economic activity for the landlord, but cultural value really brings more to making a place and could, if developed over a long period, build a sustainable mixed ecology that's very people-focused. And that kind of support has enabled organisations like ours to build a sort of less precarious business model very gradually. Over the last 8 years, we've developed as an organisation. We've gone from being very much a sort of artist and curator-led voluntary organisation to now becoming an NPO this April, and we've got a staff team of 6 part-time people, which makes us able to do many more things and gives us much more capacity, something that everybody's kind of touched on. We've expanded our studios, so now we support 23 artists and provide space of varying sizes and different types of occupancy. This is Modern Clay, a new open access ceramics facility that's run by artist Mark Essen. He opened it up to be able to do his own practice in ceramics, but is also running courses for charities like Crisis, has resident artists, and actually you can pay like a day rate to go and use the space as well. We've slightly reduced the amount of exhibitions we present. At the beginning, we were presenting kind of 5 or 6 exhibitions a year, but actually by slowing down to 3 a year, it's meant that we could produce a more in-depth programme of events and create development programmes like our curatorial curriculum. It means we've got a much deeper engagement with the audiences that we invite to the space. We've got a board of 8 people, and they're absolutely vital to the running of our organisation. We've had the board since the beginning, and it's had lots of different people on it with lots of different types of skills. So not just arts people, people from legal organisations with financial skills. That gives us a lot more capacity and enables us to be much more ambitious in our strategic thinking and planning. And I guess it's important to say that they're not an advisory board, they are directors of the company, so they have a legal responsibility, which means that they probably feel the responsibility a bit more and are able to contribute a bit more. All of that has sort of relieved some of the precariousness of the first few years, which was completely reliant on everybody's goodwill, putting in long hours, working alongside other jobs. And that is just not sustainable in the longer term. So as our ambitions have grown, so too has our staff team and our budgets, so that we can deliver a higher quality programme and have the ability to look after our artists, staff and audiences much better. We've kept the same aims throughout. We've always been about encompassing and presenting a multitude of voices. It's never been about one person's curatorial or artistic vision. We're still providing the best quality space that we can and support for artists, whether that's for studio holders or the artists in our programme. We're providing the best space we can to invite people to engage and connect with our work and us with theirs. So I guess I'm thinking about the changing context here. Obviously we were talking about 2007, it was a very different time. The impending plans for HS2 over the years have become much more present, and actually one of the roads closed up just up on Paisley Street, so building work is starting. And I guess we've been talking for a few years about how to get hold of a better quality building for ourselves, and how owning an asset might give us some security and ability to earn money in the longer term. So, yeah, as I mentioned, we're very aware of the changing context around us, and we've known for a long time that this area isn't going to stay like it is forever, and so we've been thinking about how A, we stay here, and B, how can we retain some of the community that we've built here, not just us but other people. About 3 years ago, Mike, the brilliant guy from Canals and Rivers Trust, retired, which was a bit of a blow for us, because subsequently the site that we're based on was sold at quite short notice, so that's forced us to really put some of our thoughts into action quite quickly. Luckily for us, the Homes England, who are a government body that has the remit to facilitate delivery of new homes, bought the site. So rather than the Canals and Rivers Trust selling to a private landlord who would want to develop the site quite quickly, it's meant that we've got somebody with a much slower, longer term plan thinking about the site, and somebody that's willing to work with us and in partnership with us, which is great. Also, luckily for us, a few years ago, we took on a new board member who has a background in property development. His name's John Andrews, and he had kind of stepped back from his career to take up an art degree with somebody that we know very well. And she recommended that he starts coming to arts events in Digbeth. So we got to know him over a period of time. And he's been quite keen to get involved in the activity down here in whatever way he can. And he popped up just at the right skill, at the right time where we've really needed his skills and connections. So, on news of the sale of Warwick Bar, which is the site that Minerva Works is based within, John suggested that we just make quite a ballsy move and make an offer on one of the listed buildings there called Junction Works. This is it. It's on Paisley Street. It's just down the road from where Minerva Works is. He knew that in development terms this was a hard building to turn a profit on, and so that Homes England would be able to see the benefit of trying to house some of the existing tenants on their site. And he'd worked with them previously, so he could get us in touch with the right person there which actually was really key. So we had an ear that was willing to listen. We've worked for the last 2 years to firm up a legal agreement with them since making that pretty wildcard offer to them. But they've been very receptive, and yeah, over those discussions, we've signed an agreement last April that gives us 12 months to raise £1.8 million to refurbish junction works. So nobody else can make an offer during that time. Yeah, we've got to work really hard to raise that money. However, we're in the process of that, and it feels like it's relatively realistic. This image shows you this kind of state of the current building, so it's been empty for a long time. It also had a fire in it at some point. I think it's been empty since the early 2000s, although parts of it's been empty for much longer. Our plan is to make this very beautiful heritage building into a much more accessible space that has lift access and heating throughout, something that we don't have at the moment. The building will include a gallery space. It will include affordable studios. We want to keep them as close to our current studio rent as possible, which is about £7 per square foot, so that they are genuinely affordable to visual artists. We want to also include an event and cafe space and an office space, and those spaces will enable us to generate income that makes us much more sustainable. We're also aiming to raise a further £1 million to purchase a 100-year lease on the building. So that will ensure that we can provide affordable space to artists long into the future, and mean that we have an asset that might enable us to generate income from as well. And the main aim for that is that we become as least dependent on public funding as possible. We want to be as open as possible in our methodologies for this, so that this is a model that others can follow, and we're very up for talking to organisations about how we're doing it and putting them into contact with the right people as well. I think there are still some opportunities in this area to do this. There are other listed buildings that are difficult to make a profit on, so this is something we should take advantage of. So we do hope that others will follow our lead, and we hope that working in partnership with somebody like Homes England and developing a relationship with them will kind of A, show them the value of cultural partners, but also B, open up some doors for other people. It's not all altruistic on their part. The development, will provide cultural value to the wider site that they plan to develop, and in turn that will mean that it raises the value of that place. So, it's kind of finding those opportunities where there's a win-win for both people. I also hope that we won't be on our own in this area, which is a bit of a challenge and a danger, and that we could have even a small influence on the way some of the development policies applied here in the area. I hope that the City Council can kind of build a vision and then a policy that considers the people that have worked really hard here to create a community and a business. And most importantly to us is that the building will provide a free community facility, public access to this really beautiful heritage building, and give us an opportunity to make a programme that really highlights some of that heritage as well. It's a place that allows people to experience something other than retail or spending money, and a place to reflect, to discuss, to socialise or take action. It's a really vital space for the kind of city that I want to live in. So hopefully we'll be successful.